So for almost a year now at this point, I've scrapped and rewritten this script 3 times. A major part of that was because I just didn't like the direction that I was going in the video. But with Yakuza Remastered out for Xbox and Windows now, I feel like I just need to get my thoughts out in a short video so I can focus on those games. So instead of an edit heavy video like usual, this is just going to be more laid back and shorter, explaining why I didn't make a video on it the first time I played it. So without much further ado, here's why Yakuza Kiwami should have just been DLC for Yakuza 0. So off rip, I really enjoy Kiwami as a game and I love the story, but because I keep comparing it to 0, it feels a little hollow. Coming off a game like Yakuza 0, Kiwami feels less like a step forward and more like a step sideways, even with the changes that they made from the OG version. And there's 2 major reasons for that: the gameplay and the story's significance in the series. Now, when talking about the actual gameplay of Kiwami, it feels significantly smaller than 0, and while that wouldn't really even be that big of a deal since most of the things you can do in Kiwami are just ripped straight from 0 or reskins, it feels like it's lacking in those aspects. So you're telling me I can't run a business or call baddies in 2005, but I can still race these garbage Hot Wheels? Heard you. For the combat, it only slightly feels different as Kiryu seems to move a little bit faster than he did in 0, but that's not really something you would even really notice unless you spent dozens of hours in 0. Aside from changing the way you level up and adding Majima everywhere, which is really just a different version of Mr. Shakedown, there is no major difference between the 2 games in the gameplay department that would warrant its own game. But I've also played 2K for the past 6 years, so maybe I shouldn't criticize the lack of major changes. And then there's the story and how it feels more like an expansion than a standalone experience. Now this is where the spoilers really matter, so if you haven't played 0 or Kiwami yet, and I definitely suggest that you do, you should probably dip out now if you care about the story. So 0, because of having both Kiryu and Majima's origin story, has way more moving parts and characters that are important to keep track of, as well as their motivations. In Kiwami, we only have Kiryu, even though both 0 and Kiwami essentially have the exact same premise. The Yakuza are after a mostly helpless female character that has something that the Yakuza want, and it's up to big, strong, shirtless men to protect them. But I think this is where the focus matters. 0 is kinda all over the place just because when you have a story that has 2 protagonists and the story weaves between them, it's usually gonna happen like that. Because of Kiwami's length, there's less opportunity for it to meander, even though it definitely does happen. Kiwami feels more like an epilogue after playing through 0, and if you think about it, it kind of is, and considering that Kiwami is the next chronological entry, this shouldn't really be a surprise. Yakuza 0, while it is primarily about Majima and Kiryu trying to get Makoto safe, on Kiryu's side of things, it's also about the divide between Kiryu and his friend Nishiki that grows throughout the game, and even though at the end of that game, it ends with them on good terms, there's still a sense that Kiryu has outgrown Nishiki. When Kiwami picks up 7 years later, and then another decade after that because Kiryu takes the fall for Nishiki, we see that divide reach a point that their relationship can't come back from. Even in Nishiki's final moments, I told you I was spoiling mad shit, Nishiki sacrifices himself because he knows that Kiryu and him will never be able to have the same relationship that they had. For me, Kiwami has a way more emotional impact than 0 has. The scene where Kiryu has to tell Haruka that her mom is dead was crazy. When Kazama died, I got a little teary-eyed, and it's not even because you care about him, it's just Kiryu's reaction and what Kazama meant to him. Even the ending was emotional, and there's only like 3 scenes with Nishiki and Kiryu together, but I think the tone and what we know what happens in 0 makes it just right. Kiwami feels like the swan song to Kiryu and Nishiki's relationship that was established and built in 0, but it doesn't feel like its own experience to me. Although, unlike actual DLC, you don't have to play through 0 to understand it, and since there's some additional cutscenes in Kiwami that weren't in the original, it gives way more context. Honestly, every time I think about this game, I'm just very torn about how I feel about it because I keep going back and forth on what I like, what I don't like, and what I was expecting. After spending so much time playing 0, I was expecting Kiwami to be different enough to be worth a completely separate game. I don't really think that it is. I honestly wonder how I would have felt if I played the original, or if I had just played Kiwami without the influence of 0, if I would feel like Kiwami was lacking in almost every other aspect except the story. In my opinion, Kiwami has the better story of the 2, but just for gameplay and experience, I think that 0 has way more to offer. Kiwami is more stripped down, and for a more straightforward experience, I think it edges out Zero, but I'm still not really sure which one of these I like more, because there's aspects of both that I think top each other. And as jumbled as all that was, I think it's a perfect representation of how I feel about this game. But let me know what you thought. Which game is your favorite? Do you think that I should just do a full review on Kiwami? How's your day going? How many questions at the end of a video are too many? Let me know in the comment section below. Mayhaps like and subscribe. And thanks for watching.